All right. So, welcome everybody. It is so great to have you here. We're going to be talking today about how to fall in love all over again. And so, I'm really, really excited to have this conversation. I think that loving is one of the most amazing things we get the opportunity to do. And I just, because this is near and dear to my heart for a moment, I just want to name, I think, love and learning how to love and be loved well, like, really is one of the most powerful things we can do. And just with the place we are in the world, I just want to name, like how powerful it is that we're all showing up for a conversation like this, really learning to continue to love and be loved really well. It's just so powerful. So thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to share this space with you. And so before we even get started, I just want to help us land here for a moment from whatever else you are doing today. So feel free. I always love to put my hand on my heart as I do this, but feel free to do this however it feels good for you. Just take a moment to breathe. Maybe take a nice big inhale and let yourself just exhale. Maybe giving it a little bit of sound if that feels good. Just moving your body might feel nice, just allowing yourself to land and really feel yourself in your body for a moment. Beautiful. And if you can be distraction free for this next hour, I invite you to be really here and be present. And I want to remind you that you are in the right place. If you really do want to learn how to love and be loved well, if you want to feel more resilient when you're loving and how you're loving, and if you want to learn how to really create new possibilities in environments and with people where maybe you had the same reoccurring frustrations, right? If these things are true for you, and if you want to like love with soft eyes while also having firm boundaries, right? If any of these things feel really true for you, I invite you to pop a yes in the chat. And you really are in the right place if these things are feeling alive and true for you. Beautiful. And before we get into the meat of this as well, beautiful, yay. I invite you to just set an intention for this hour. I felt really called to share that this morning when I was waking up and reflecting on this. Maybe just noticing if there's a call for you where you're either wanting more clarity in your relationships. Maybe there's a part of you that just wants to feel more connection. And it's beautiful to be here with other humans and other women, knowing that you're not alone in the journey. Or maybe you are here because you want some inspiration. There's something you'd love to learn or know, and you're hoping that by being here, you're going to get a little bit of inspiration to fuel you. So I invite you to even just think of a one-word intention as we're coming together, and you can feel free to share it, or maybe you even just jot it down. And as that's coming to you, more juice. I love it. Yes, I think that as you're listening today, you're going to reconnect with some juice. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Feel free to share them as they come if you have them. And as we're clear boundaries, amazing, amazing. Yeah, what we'll share today will support boundaries for sure. And the other piece I just wanted to share that I woke up to really thinking about this morning, and I just want to land this as we're talking about it, is this invitation to really know that you can be trusted, that your gut can be trusted, that your desires can be trusted, that you can be trusted in your own trial and error process with relationship. I feel like relationship and the nature of them and how we learn to love becomes this incredible trial and error playground. And it's one that really requires a lot of grace. But if you really lean in and know that it can be a place to really continue to trust yourself really deeply, it can start to feel more and more rewarding. So I just want to give you this permission to really anchor in how trustworthy you are, how trustworthy you can be, and really to be willing to see that in yourself, even if it feels a little bit shaky. I really want to invite you to know that you can be trusted. on this journey with love and really finding a way to do it in a way that feels beautiful for you. So yeah, feel free to pop a yes if any of this stuff excites you as much as it excites me. Beautiful. So I want to, before we get into the content and some of the meat too, I love just giving us a little bit of grounding. So one of the things I want to share that might be resonating for you and why this topic is so valuable to be having a conversation around. And I'm going to share my screen to talk about this next little piece. All right, can you see that pop up? Beautiful. So I want to talk for a moment about where we stand with relationship satisfaction. Because if you are not feeling fully satisfied, you are not alone at all. This statistic I found, I forget, I think this was from 2019, so it was a few years ago, but basically only like 35 to 40% of people are very satisfied with things like their sex life, with communication, with dividing chores. So this means that about 60% of us are somewhere on the side of less than very satisfied. And this is really powerful to really know and understand is just how many of us, for me, one of the things this speaks to is just how many of us are not taught how to be really masterful with our sex lives, with our communication, with how we handle a household in a way that gets to feel really amazing. And so I love to be a part of starting this conversation and keeping this conversation going about how we can really feel more satisfied. So you're not alone if you feel these things at all. And today, I invite you to think about it like an opportunity to just upgrade, to begin to play with what upgrades that would look like to you in a way that would feel really beautiful and fueling for the love you're experiencing. Okay, so first, a personal note too on why this topic gets me so juiced up. So I am happy to say right now, I am happily engaged. I'm with a partner that we've been together for 8 years, actually, but we've gotten to this point where this is incredible for me to, like, as I'm really sinking in and feeling this as I say it, like our relationship has become so rewarding, so beautiful. There's just connection in a way that sometimes like it brings me to tears. I'm like, oh my goodness, like him just bringing lattes in the morning, like things like I used to beg for eye contact from him. And now he'll just look at me sometimes and look me in the eye and then be like, I know you enjoy that, baby, don't you? It's just like these really sweet moments. But for many of those years, it really was not amazing. Like we had a lot of challenges. We felt like roommates for a long portion of that. There was bickering and nagging. And I remember even hearing from other coaches and teachers, like, you don't have nagging rights, you have leaving rights, right? And so I logically understood that I'm not here to nag, but it was just so hard. I was like, I've got to help. I've got to tell you what to do. Like there were just these things that were so hard for me in love and really not feeling appreciated in the way that I really wanted to, not experiencing the intimacy I really wanted to. And I remember even a moment where more than one moment, where I was lying in bed in tears, like really wondering, are we broken? Like, is this not fixable? And there really were a number of turning points, and I'm actually going to talk about 2 of those over the course of our time together. But the one that I want to highlight just to get started is, as I went on this journey of really like investing my time, love, and energy in figuring this out, like how does one love and be loved well, like really well. And in one of those moments where my partner and I were actually starting to do better and better, we had gone through a period of not living together. We were living together again, and we were celebrating that things were feeling better. We went out to this dinner, and we were sitting having a glass of wine and an artichoke starter that was really yummy. It was this like nice romantic environment, so it felt really yummy. And I was feeling the romance, but also feeling a little feisty. And so I said to him, "Are you going to ask me to marry you?" Right? Like I just came out with it. And there was a long silence, actually. And I was like, that's not good. Like, why is there silence? And my heart just sunk. And he didn't, like, I could tell he didn't want to respond, but there was continued silence that really didn't feel good. And he looked at me and said, I want you to know that I do love you. And I do hope that we get married someday. But more than anything, I want to know that we know how to have fun together. Like I want to know that we know how to really, really enjoy our time together. And it was a really big moment for me because initially I was so annoyed. I was like, no, just give me what I want now. But I also was like, wow, like this is actually really true. I could feel the truth. There were some important elements missing to us just loving our relationship. And so it really, really slowed me down to realize I want both, right? I want us to be moving forward in ways that feel amazing, right? And reach those milestones. But I really also want to know that we are having fun, that this is an enjoyable relationship, that we love it. And that really, really was a big shift for me. Like it was one of the many big shifts that had me stop shifting so much from just trying to make something happen and get to milestones and really start thinking about how I could live this relationship more and more where I really truly enjoyed it. Like pop a yes in the comments if you can resonate with this, if you can resonate with this piece of like knowing you like the idea of you reaching milestones, but maybe having these reminders of how significant it is to actually get to that place where you want to be where you are and you love the journey of being where you are. So, this was many of those moments where I really just started to pay attention to, okay, how do I deeply care about this experience? And more, like day by day, week by week, as we were going through things, right, and going through our life and making this commitment to enjoying the process, like we really beautifully got to this moment where it was so unexpectedly, like one morning he woke up before me and put the engagement ring on the side of my bed. And yeah, just when I rolled over, he was like, you know what? I don't know why I feel like today is the day, but I want to wake up next to you every day for the rest of my life. And it was such it was a moment, right? Like I wasn't trying to make anything happen, but from just really being committed to loving the space we were in, like these beautiful moments got to happen in really unpredictable ways, like in spontaneously beautiful ways. And I want to remind you, right? I am not particularly lucky. I have made a ton of mistakes. Seriously. Right. And I know that this is something that just requires new skill sets, new ways of relating to learn. And I really, really want you to hear in this that you can do this too, that this is so possible to really create the love that you really, really long for and have this be a reality for yourself too. So yeah, so Puppy, yes, if you're excited to hear more and hear some of these really juicy nuggets that I've boiled down that can give you a starter today. And for those of you who are really new to me, just really briefly, my name is Jacqueline Foster. I have been coaching for a little over 10 years and love coaching in this space of intimacy and relationship. I self-published a book about 4 or 5 years ago now called I Touch Myself, which was an exploration of me just getting to know my desires more deeply, understanding my own sex drive. It was really powerful for me. And I love working with women to really immerse them in tools to create sustainable love, attraction, and connection in their relationships. So we are here to talk about love today. And love, one of the things I was thinking about as we were leading up to this, is that love really is a full contact sport, isn't it? It's like you can't love and practice loving fully without hitting up against big things, big feelings, big fears, big fantasies. You can also think about that like big desires. I was just playing with the F's there, but right, like we all have we all have those big desires in love. And there can be these highs that can make your heart melt and you feel like you're expanding with joy, but also those lows that can make your blood boil and your heart sink. And in my experience, part of the journey that gets us back to resilience and loving love is learning how to even see those moments where you're like flying high and you're falling in love, but then you hit the ground, right? When where you hit those inevitable moments where your heart sinks and you're just like, what am I doing here? Right? Like those are really, really critical moments to play with and learn how they can be rewarding for your benefit and how you can see the love that can be available and is available with those who really want to meet you. So this is what we're going to be talking a little bit today about how to work with those big feels, those big fears, and those big fantasies, and to give you a bit of an anchor so you can start to play with this yourself. And before we do this, to give you a little bit of a reflection as we're exploring this, is I'd love for you to think about, and feel free to pop this in your journal if you'd like, and you can also pop it in the chat as well. What do you love about falling in love and being in love? Just pause for a moment and ask yourself, what do you love about it? Like when love is good, what do you love about it? And what makes you so glad you're there? Just think about it just for a moment and feel free to pause, put in the chat if you feel inspired, but also noting down for yourself. And what drives you nuts about it? Right? What makes you feel like sometimes you might want to jump ship? Be like, I don't know, man. Is love worth it? Should I trade you in? Is there a better model? Like what are those things, or what is something that drives you nuts about love? And you can jot that down for yourself too. Like this is such a beautiful thing just to start to connect with. Awareness is so, so big and helpful. Okay, amazing. So feel free, if you're still in a zone of writing that down. I'm going to start to share our first tip, but you can feel free to stay in that reflection for a moment if you'd like. So in thinking about our big feels, our big fears and our big fantasies and how we can use those to our advantage, we're first going to just land for a moment on talking about our big feels. One of the biggest things that I've learned in my journey with love is how valuable it is to learn to feel safe and celebrated through all of the feels, right? Have you ever, think for a moment, have you ever had a kiss with a partner when it was just amazing? You were so there for it, right? It was just so beautiful, so connective, so passionate, whatever it was that you really, really loved. And then think of the same person where there might have been a kiss where you were either distracted or irritated or turned off, right? And what was different about those two experiences? From what I know, right, what's different is how you felt, right? What you were present and all in for or not all in for, right? And what I know, and I imagine you can relate to this, is that the thing about love is that there's a lot of like non-logical things involved, right? Like when we love, that feeling of loving and knowing that we're loving happens in our body, right? It happens in our body. It happens in our emotions. We know it because it's actually alive in our emotions, in our sensations, and in our body, right? When your heart races, when you're with that person that you really care about, when you feel that expansion in your pelvis, right? When your jaw relaxes, when your body softens, or even when your body contracts, right? All of this is how we know that we are here, that we are here for it. And one of the things for the longest time, I just did not know, because no one knew, no one around me knew, and no one knew how to teach me this, was just how sexy, attractive, and beautiful and amazing, and I will say for us women, like, is a superpower, is really being like willing and feeling that safety and celebration in feeling your life, right? And in feeling your life and the experiences that you have really fully. Like, pop a yes in the chat if you're feeling this at all and you're like at all leaned in of like, oh, maybe there's something I was missing there, or like maybe there is something more to this whole body experience that I haven't fully tapped into. Like, feel free to pop a yes if that resonates at all. Beautiful. And I want to actually give you I want to give you a little experience with this for a moment, just to feel into your own body together in a space and in a way that can feel really yummy and give you an invitation to this. But before we do, really briefly, I actually did a little bit of research on this, because I found sometimes this idea of feeling one, it can be a little bit intimidating, and two, it can feel kind of non-tangible, right? It's like, well, I get it, feeling, okay. It's not always fun all the time. I do love it when I'm in love, but so one of the things I found that I wanted to share with you was this research study that was done with about 26 women. I think they were aging between about 25 and 65. And they were struggling with their sexual drive, their sexual desire, really feeling turned on. And they did 8 weeks of mindfulness practices, which essentially, right, what mindfulness is learning to be present with our emotions and our body and really be in it and come to love it. And so these women did these 8 weeks of practices. And really what they found is that all of them lifted from their baseline, where they felt more desire, more attraction, like the sex itself was more enjoyable. And so I love this because it's a bit of a tangible example that really, when you're willing to see the beauty of how you feel and your ability to house that and love that in your body, like, you really create this beautiful environment within yourself to cultivate connection and intimacy and depth that you get to benefit from no matter what, right? No matter what. And then you get to see, this is the beauty that I love circling back to again and again and reminding you of, is that when you embrace this and you love this and you sink this in, then you get to find out who meets you for it, right? But you get to benefit and feel the gain from it no matter what. So what I want to do is give you just an experience for a moment of sinking in to your own body as this incredible house, right? This incredible, and I'm going to use the word even sacred, right? That your body is this beautiful, sacred home for you to be with, stir, transform how you feel. And over time, right, even if this feels a little awkward and funky at first, to come to really love it. So what I'm going to invite you to do is, and you can do this with eyes open or eyes closed, I'm going to invite you again just to put your hand on your heart, or maybe on your legs, just somewhere on your body, just to like reconnect. I've been speaking for a little bit and you've been hearing me talk, so you might be more in your mind, but I'm going to invite you just for a moment to reconnect with your body and notice where you're feeling sensation. notice where you might be, and one, you can even notice where your attention is drawn. Maybe you are noticing an area where you're feeling contraction, where you're feeling tightness. Often when we play with this kind of practice, it doesn't always feel flowy and really expansive at first. We might notice those spaces of contraction first, and that's perfect. And what I'm going to invite you to do, and I'm going to put on a song for a moment for you to do this, but I'm going to give you the verbal cues first so that, because I don't think you'll be able to hear me once I play the music. So what we're going to do is I'm going to invite you, when you're feeling that sensation in your body, I want you to stir it. And when I say stir it, I invite you to like let your curves lead you in a circular motion. So letting your chest like lift and rise and like circle, right? And you can feel your pelvis as well, right? You can let your body circle in both directions. And as you hear this song, as I bring this song in, again, you can close your eyes if it feels nice to allow yourself to go inward. As I play this song, I just invite you to play with this for a moment, to feel the sensation in your body, to stir it as you feel it, and to play with letting that feel yummy, whether it be tension, whether it be something that does feel yummy and sexy, maybe in a way that you don't practice as much, whatever you feel, to really just soak that in and love it. So are there any, let me just ask, are there any questions? Feel free to pop in the chat about what I'm asking you to do. We're just going to do this for a minute, but I want you to sink in, and with music, it can be such a beautiful way to do it. Give me a thumbs up if this, like, you get enough what I'm saying, that you're game to play with this. I think so. Amber, does this feel good for you? Can I? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Oh, I popped something open I didn't want open. Okay. So just adjust if you need to get in a comfy space. I'm just going to make this smaller. And we're just going to listen to this for just a minute or so. So I'm going to share my audio. Oh, let me, hold on. I want to just share the audio if I can. Okay. So just sink into your body, put your hand on your heart if that feels good to do so.
Settle down with me, cover me up, cuddle me in, lie down with me and hold me in your arms, and your heart's against my chest, your lips pressed to my neck. I'm falling for your eyes, but they don't know me yet. And with a feeling I forget, I'm in love now. Kiss me like you wanna be loved.
Okay. So it was just a very small snippet, but I invite you just for a moment before we go on to our next piece, is just to check in with one word on how that felt, how it felt to be in your body for a moment, and to stir in a really loving way, and to be the home for your emotions, for your sensations. And just giving yourself a moment to soak that in. Yeah, shifting sensation from stuck to fluid. I love that. Yeah, I'm constantly reminded of how much these moments to like, and music is does this so beautifully, but like to have music and sensation and emotion and just letting yourself move with it is so, so beautiful to get unstuck. Amazing. I need more. Yeah. Yeah. That song was it's Ed Sheeran, Kiss Me. So if you did want to jot it down and even listen to the full song after, it's about 4 minutes. It's a really beautiful full song. Feel free to soak that in afterwards. Okay. I've gotten very excited with you, and my plan was to keep this at an hour, and I'm realizing I'm going to do my best because we're going to transition to the second piece. So beautiful. But yeah, I invite you to play with this. And the one little last note I'll share with this is like an intimacy mastery tip is if you notice you've been in your head all day, and then you're going to be with someone that you want to be intimate with, play with this before you see them. Put a song on that feels really, really yummy and play like these, in my experience, these circular motions that just allow us to really sink into our feminine curves are just a really beautiful way to reconnect with our body and to juice us up. I remember a comment about wanting to feel more juiced up, and it really is a beautiful way to juice yourself up before intimacy with another person too. Okay. So the second piece we're going to talk about is big fears and becoming a master at transforming wounds into wisdom. And yeah, I'm going to do my best to consolidate because I get so excited about this topic. I can talk about it for days. So yeah, I'm setting the intention that I share this with you in a way that consolidates it and gives you enough to play with to start. So how many of you know you've had experiences in love where you want to open your heart more, you want to believe it can be different, you want things to feel different, but you kind of cringe at the thought of opening up more to more possibilities because you're like, I don't know if they're really going to be here. So I'm going to maybe put one foot in a little bit, and I'm going to definitely keep one foot out, and I got my eye on you. Right? Like it can be so common for this to happen in love. Like pop a yes in the comments if you want to share that this has been true for you. I think this is a very, very human response to loving and being impacted by love. And having past impacts from love, past wounds from love that impact how we love and our ability to feel like we can love openly and try again and again, even when we know that things have not always gone great. And there's 3 universal wounds that I learned about that they're universal in the sense that when I share them with you, you're going to be like, yeah, I know those, or I know one of those. And the thing about these universal wounds is they have a personal impact, right? You have your own personal story on how they've impacted you. And these 3 wounds that are really biggies for us are abandonment, betrayal, and shame. And I invite you, right? Like, I think for me, even sometimes hearing those words, kind of produces that resistance and that like, I don't know if I want to talk about this. But I invite you to stay with me. I invite you to exhale if you need, to just be present and know that, one, I have amazing news for you, because being aware of these wounds actually sets you up to show up so differently for them in a way that you can bring yourself the remedy, you can bring yourself the antidote, you can bring yourself the healing element that can allow you to face that wound in a way that you might not have learned to. So I want to give you a bit of this paradigm shift, and I want to give you just a tiny bit of context before I do. When I read what I'm about to share with you, I was actually in a moment of my life where I had just taken a 6-month break from David, my partner. I wasn't living with him. I was moving from places month to month. I didn't know where I was going to live each month. And we had just paused our commitment, meaning we were like, you can do whatever you want, right? Like, we love each other, we'll see what happens, but we can do whatever we want. We have no idea what's happening in our future. So I'm feeling scared about making decisions. I'm going back and forth. I'm not committed to him. But strangely, as I'm like, I'm moving out, I don't know what's going to happen. A part of me is thinking, like, do I do no contact? Right? Like, a part of me was like, do I do no contact with him and just take all of this time and not even talk to him? But interestingly, he's helping me pack, and I'm like bawling my eyes out as he's helping me pack, because I'm like, oh man, this guy's showing up for me when I'm kind of inconveniencing his life. Like, I'm leaving and it's impacting him. And he even, like, he sent me a meal so that when I arrived at the place that I was going to, I had a meal. And so I'm like, oh, what's happening here? Like, a part of me wanted to just be able to like clean cut and to leave things. But I was also aware that I was scared about making decisions, and I was seeing how I was not feeling as much trust in myself. And I was having these moments where I wanted to do things, but I felt so scared about them that I was trying to avoid them. So this is the moment that I'm in. And I'm reading this book. I actually have it next to me because I'm rereading it right now. It's called The Mind Body Code by Dr. Mario Martinez. And he talks about like healing from wounds and really how we can make shifts, permanent shifts in our lives. And one of the things I read that he wrote was that when you're working with a wound of abandonment, which is one of the biggest ones I felt and really was present for me at the time, was that what heals abandonment is commitment. Right? What heals abandonment is actually commitment. And I had this massive aha. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I've felt abandoned. I've been getting scared of being more abandoned. So I'm accidentally abandoning things that I'm feeling called to do, and relationships I'm feeling called to pursue. So I'm like accidentally continuing to abandon. I'm doing the same thing. I'm repeating the same wound. And it was really eye-opening for me to start to realize, oh my gosh, what I actually need to do now is explore my relationship to commitment, right? To leaning in. And right, and I knew, right, that commitment for me could look like, in part, leaning into acknowledging my efforts and really seeing myself for where I was showing up, right? It looked like becoming more aware of where my relationships actually were reciprocal and being willing to lean into that commitment so I could receive more in my relationships, right? And looking into, hey, where am I not committed to my own boundaries, right? Where are there places where I'm accidentally abandoning myself, where if I had better boundaries, I would lean in because I would feel more trust in myself and see who was honoring me as much as I am. And so this was so really profound for me. And like, I would love to pop a yes in the comments if this resonates for you, and if you can feel the truth of this, that maybe there are certain things that happened in certain ways that you felt wounded, where, man, if you could receive the antidote, if you could receive more of the remedy and know how to enforce that for yourself, that would be powerful. Yes, yeah, amazing. And I'm gonna pull up, because although I spoke to abandonment today, beautiful. I want to just pull up so you guys can take a look at this for yourself too, and write these down if you'd like for a moment. Bear with me. I want to pull up the antidotes for all three so you can see this as I speak for a moment. Oh. Okay, so I think you can see that. Perfect. So the antidotes, right? I shared the antidote for abandonment, which is commitment. And the antidote for betrayal is loyalty. And for shame, it's honor. And what I invite you to consider and to contemplate on is, what is one of these that's your big one that's present for you in your life and in your relationships right now, where you can just feel it, right? Maybe you know you've been abandoned in the past and you're like, crap, I keep feeling this. Or maybe it's betrayal, or maybe it's like, if you need a little bit more context for a moment, like betrayal might be someone lying to you or being cheated on, and having that come up in ways that maybe felt like a pattern. And so in your current relationships, you might not be as loyal to your desires because there's that fear of betrayal. And shame, this is more, right? If you just have, for me, it's like having this feeling that you're bad, right? That you're bad in the relationship, or that you're a bad partner or daughter or mother or whatever it is, that there's roles that you've learned to see yourself as bad in. And that actually might be a call for you to reconnect with just how honorable you are, right? And all the ways that you have shown up that are worth honoring and acknowledging. And seeing that so often these wounds are just a sign that you need to just practice and reinforce the remedy, reinforce the cure. Right? I'm playing with calling it the cure, right? The emotional cure. And that I imagine you can hear my enthusiasm with this. I get so excited about it because over time, I really couldn't believe how much this transformed my relationship. And right, first and foremost, I'm such a big fan of when you learn to show up for yourself a certain way and really sink in your bones how trustworthy you are to show up in that way with yourself, it becomes so much easier to love and have an open heart with the people that you want to, and that it's really worth it with. So, and I know this is a tender topic, but as we wrap up and switch to our the final piece and the final nugget, I invite you to just pause for a second, if you haven't already, and ask yourself which one of these universal wounds feels really personal for you, right? Like, do you feel like the abandonment piece, you're like, oh, I just expect that I'm going to be left? Or, right, or is that betrayal piece really present for you? Or do you have that kind of sinking empty feeling that, like, I don't know, I just keep feeling like it's reinforced that I'm bad and there's something wrong with me? So just connecting for a moment with what that wound feels like for you, which one of these resonates? And at the same time, really getting present with, what is the antidote that you're feeling called to really begin to practice and reinforce in your life, right? To know how worthy you are of being committed to see how beautiful it is to be loyal to yourself and to those who are loyal to you, to see how honorable you are and how beautiful it is to honor those who love you well, right? So, and if you feel called, like putting your hand on your heart for a moment, yeah, abandonment is the strongest of the three. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. For me too, abandonment was a huge one for me to work with, and really exploring my relationship to commitment was just so amazing, beautiful, amazing. Thank you guys for sharing. I know that's a vulnerable, tender thing to share. And these are things I do, like, this is one of the reasons I'm such a believer in getting longer term like support and immersion, because sometimes it takes a little bit of practice to really root this in. And so I play with this a bit more in that relationship bliss program, a longer term program I teach, where you get to be with me and like I can hold you through some of these points. But if you even know from today what your antidote is, what your cure is, I invite you to really play with how you can explore anchoring yourself into it. Beautiful. Okay. So we're going to shift to our final topic. I'm going to really do my best to wrap up at the end of the hour. I know especially we're in the middle of the day and I want to honor your time. So probably what I'll do is plan to wrap up as close to 3 Pacific for me, and then I will stay on to answer questions. But our third piece, this is a bit of a, actually, if you need, let's take an exhale for a moment. That's a bit of a heavier one. Feel free if you need just to stretch, like just to feel your own expansiveness, to connect with your own possibilities and shift your own energy for a moment. Feel free to take an exhale. You're doing beautifully. I know this is an intense topic, but it's so transformative to practice showing up for and seeing what's possible. Amazing. Yeah, amazing. Okay, so the last piece I want to share is the beauty of when there's big fantasies, big desires in relationship, how you can play with them in a way that is tangible, that you can really consider, not just in terms of like, oh, I have big desires and I'd love to see these big desires fulfilled in my relationship in the long term, right? I'd love to know I'm engaged. I'd love to know I'm married. What are we doing here, right? When all that stuff comes up, a really beautiful way to play with this is to start to explore for yourself what it looks like for you to have gourmet experiences around love, around connection, around intimacy, and understanding that so often what happens to so many of us is when we're living our life in our day-to-day, we can accidentally have more of a fast food experience of our life, right? Like hands up or Papa, yes, if you can relate to this. I know I can have those times where it's like, am I doing the checklist? What's next? What has to get done, right? Or even when I'm feeling irritated with my partner, instead of slowing down and paying attention to the quality of my experience, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why are you not also doing more with me? Like, has anybody ever been there? And so what I'm inviting you to play with and want you to give you permission to explore is, what would it be like if you really gave yourself permission to pay attention to whether or not what you were doing, you were having a high quality experience of, right? Because so often I think, sometimes we do have, the truth is we do have big desires. We do want things to move forward. But I feel like something I've seen for myself that's so just under recognized is that so often, more than novelty, like we really want deeply quality experiences, right? Where we're like feeling them and they're beautiful and we want to be there and we're there to savor it and to have experiences that you actually want to linger in, right? Like, isn't that incredible to think about, having experiences in your life where you actually want to linger in it? Right? Like, how often do we not have those experiences, right? We're like, let me get this done as fast as possible so I can move on to the next thing. And so what I want you to just play with as we're wrapping up this piece, and this is kind of like a yummy, semi-easy thing to start to explore, is what is one aspect that you would consider like a relationship aspect, and I'm going to give you a few ideas, where if that was a better quality experience, one where you wanted to savor, where you wanted to linger in it, that, man, like, that would be good. Right? Like, you would be even a little bit more like, I want to be here, right? And this is rewarding and I want to show up for this. So I invite you to think, like a few big areas might be in your sex life, right? Or would it feel so much better if you gave yourself permission to breathe more deeply, right? When you're having sex with another person or with yourself, right? To be like, you know what, I'm going to breathe here and I'm just going to notice what I'm feeling a little bit more, right? Maybe something like that would feel really yummy for you. Maybe you tend to be like, all right, let's just, I want a little something, let me just get over with, right? But how might it feel to actually let that be even a little bit more of a quality upgrade? Maybe your area is communication, where you would love if when you were communicating with your partner, you guys just slowed down and looked each other in the eye, or just put the things down that you had on your mind and just gave yourself even 2 minutes to listen to them uninterrupted, to see what that felt like, just to really fully be there. Right? It may be, you know, that when you walk out the door and when you start your day, you have a tendency to just run outside the door. But maybe you know that if you took a few extra minutes to make sure you put on a fabric that felt really good, or a lipstick that you really enjoyed, or if you just flirted with your partner or even with yourself in the mirror, or just 2 minutes before you left, that might have you walking out the door just feeling a little bit more sassy in a way that you really love. Or maybe, and I want to just there's one more I want to give you that I think we often don't pay attention to, is sometimes, really what supports a relationship is allowing yourself to have more quality alone time, right? Where you take yourself out for coffee, or you take yourself out to dinner, or bring yourself to have an experience that you long for your partner to do, but you really give it to yourself, and you see how that fills you up and has you showing up differently when you're with your partner in a way that maybe unexpectedly they're like showing up differently and more perked up. I've been really surprised and impressed how sometimes when I do the thing for me that I want him to do, all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, I am here too. So, yeah. So I want to leave this with you, and feel free if you have ideas popping off in your mind about like, oh yeah, like, oh, I want my communication to feel richer. Oh, I'd love to feel a little bit more sexy and turned on in the morning, or like, I'd love to just treat myself more, have this experience in our connection. If any of those ideas are coming to you as we wrap up this piece, I invite you to share them in the chat, and also write them down for yourself. Write them down so that you have them and you can remember them and continue to play once we get off the call. And I'll give you just a moment. Amazing. So if you still feel free to jot down, and I'm moving forward because I want to keep us on the hour, but yeah, you like the idea of flirting with yourself. Oh, yeah, it can be so much fun just to play with flirting with yourself. I've been like, it can feel so silly, but man, it can be so much fun to even just play with flirting with yourself. Or like, I feel like sometimes in the mirror every once in a while I'll be like, you're so sexy, and just play with how it feels. It can be so fun just to, even if it feels awkward, to really play with that. So that's so beautiful, Gabrielle. Yeah. Yeah, flirting is so much fun. Gosh, I have so many. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So as we start coming to a close, this may be the one that's up for you, or there may be another one, but I would love to know, like, what is feeling most present with you as we're starting to wrap up. What do you feel like you got the most, like, that really is sticking with you? The point that you're like, ooh. And maybe it's connected to the feelings, the big feels, and how to feel safe and celebrated. Maybe it's that piece of working with fears and working with transforming your wounds into wisdom. And maybe it's this last topic of like these quality upgrades. Amber, I'll if you can stay on, stay with me. I'm going to save the questions for a little bit. Falling more in love with myself first. Yeah. So beautiful. So beautiful. All right, amazing. Yeah, so feel free to pop in your insights there and the nuggets that you're really, really excited to take away. So, yeah, so as you're doing that, as you're reflecting on that, one of the pieces that I love so much about doing this work in relationship is not just my own personal journey, but these really beautiful stories that I get to see with the women that I work with. And one that's really present for me lately is this woman, Caro, that I had the chance to work with, who really came into her relationships, like into our work together with her from her relationships, feeling like disappointed, feeling betrayed, feeling disheartened. Ooh, I've got a little light flicker. You're going to have a little light show for a moment, maybe. And she really, really longed to feel more grounded, to like embrace her passion and also feeling at home. And what I love about getting to go on this journey with people and let it being immersive is that it's incredible how much you can actually start to enjoy the journey of love. And I think this was a beautiful thing that I got to see from her and so many of the women that I get to work with is getting to that place where you get to love and know that you have your own anchor, that you are grounded in yourself and that you can trust yourself. And yeah, so this is a huge thing I've found in the women I get to work with that are such a pleasure, like this woman Caro. And what I've seen is that women that really commit to showing up in their relationships differently, to discovering how amazing they are in love, learning to trust themselves, to feel a deeper intimacy and connection, and how to make love fun, right? These are the women that end up having these relationships where you're like, ah, hallelujah, it is possible. And yeah, so I really, really want to, as we're coming to a close, remind you just how much like you can do this too, right? And so often, one of the things I really want to anchor you in is that life can feel like busy, right? There can feel like there's so many things going on in life, so many things to pay attention to. And there can be this urge to want to speed up with everything, right? To just get there. Similar to how I had that moment when we were not engaged and I was like, let's just get there already. Come on now, man. And really realizing that what I needed to do was learn to slow down. And there's this beautiful, I don't know where this originally came from, but I really love it. And a few mentors have said it to me over the years that so often, in order to speed up, you have to first slow down. And in my experience, when you want deeper intimacy, when you want deeper connection in your relationships, this is one of the places where this is just the most true, is that really, for more of those things, slowing down is what is needed, right? And learning that when your yes is, and knowing how much you can trust yourself and that there is no rush. And so I want to I'm going to share an invitation as a free gift to have a follow-up conversation with me. And I invite you, if you are feeling a call that, oh my gosh, maybe I do need to slow down more with myself, with how I love, to really have more of the experience that I really want, to give myself these remedies and these cures. I love the word cure right now, but like the cure for these wounds, right? So as we close, I would like to invite you to something that I'm calling a relationship bliss session, which is a free opportunity to really sit down for an hour and get more clear on what your relationship vision is, right? And how you can start approaching your relationship more and more where you feel like you have a plan to shift the dynamics that you've been in. Recognizing that we all do have wounds. Yeah, thank you. Gabrielle has put the link in there for you. And so I invite you to schedule this relationship bliss session so we can sit down together, have this conversation, and take a look at some of these biggest challenges, take a look at how we might be a fit to work together and to really have you in this space of like what I love to think of as like being immersively held so you can learn to love and be loved really, really well. So if you're feeling the call to that, you can click the link. I have about, I think there's like 3 or 4 sessions that I left open this afternoon and tomorrow. So if you really do feel a call and you're feeling inspired and juiced up from this conversation, we can have the conversation now while you're really feeling some energy around it. So, oh, okay, only 3 minutes after 3, we're doing good. So I'm gonna pause here. Feel free to take that link and schedule now if you're feeling a call. And I'm gonna stay here now for a few minutes. I don't have anywhere to be even for the next half hour. So if there's any questions, either about our content today or what it might look like even to be on that call, I'm here. You can pop them in the chat, or you can also raise your hand. And I know, Amber, you popped your question in there. I can start there. Do you want to have a little dialogue, or do you want me to speak a little bit to your question? You can unmute yourself if you'd like.
No, you can, of course. I'm able to. I'm free. You can. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So tell me, I see your question here on like feeling like it's hard to find a good person, and tell me a little bit what's coming up for you. I want to have a little more context. You can tell me as much or as little as you want. I know we're new to
No, I've been in relationships, but I've come to realize, I've been in a very long relationship, but now, after my long relationship, I've come to realize it's very hard to find relationship. In the many years ago, we were living in the old term, the old fashioned way. And nowadays we're living in these ways. There aren't too many good men, put it that way. And it's hard. So how can you find love? Put it that way. Not everything with the technology, everybody's online, and you can't. How can for the good woman? How can we find the true love?
Okay, I have a few thoughts about this. So one, I feel you, and I want to send you some compassion because I know. Yeah, I want to speak to a few things if inspiration. So one, something that I've found about women that is so amazing, but sometimes can makes love a little bit harder than it has to be. And I'm speaking from experience, I'm one of these women, is we love to like help and fix and try to like make our men better. Right? I don't know if this fully resonates for you. This is what's coming up, so I want to share a few thoughts. It can, and even just outside of Amber, can anybody relate to this where you're in a relationship and you're kind of like, come on, man, if you would just listen to what I'm telling you about how you could be better, we would be so much better. Anybody ever been there? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think this is really, really common. And so again, this is not to pick on, this is more like, I want you to feel liberation from this. One of the things that I've found is, so often women get this teaching of how to kind of help and fix and like be aware of what can be different and let our partners know. And it is really, really powerful in relationship and just as a woman to start to play more and more with like, how can I take what's happening in my experience in my relationship where I'm seeing I want more and use it to inform what I need, right? In ways that I can still make requests and ask for things, but that it's not from any energy of demand, right? Where it's like a playful place of, if you respond to this, amazing. And if you don't, I can get my needs met too in other ways. And I just want to name this because one of the most transformative and hardest and most rewarding things I did in my relationships was learn how to lean back, right? Like how to love myself, love him, but lean back and not in, this is it's a deeper conversation, and I just want to give you a little bit to contemplate, and I would love to have a longer conversation, but it's so amazing as a woman to learn how to love well, love big, but also not be the helper, and not necessarily try to get your partner to do things differently. Is this resonating at all?
I mean, it's my last relationship, everything was well. It was 3 years, but I mean, he had a friend, and I think it's always that friend, a girl, maybe was the influence that I didn't have no idea.
Oh,
The
that he was.
problem that when they have a friend as a girlfriend, that's the issue, and
Okay. So
never knew why we broke up. He never said, but I'm more than sure that was because of that girl, the friend.
okay.
I was,
So yeah. So this is, thank you for sharing that. So this is the other piece I'll say is, and this is why one of the things I'm such a fan of is I think sometimes women don't know how powerful they are when they change themselves alone, right? When you're committed to making sure no matter what, you feel more loved, and then like releasing the invitation to the person to meet you, and then paying attention with open, objective eyes on whether or not they show up to meet you. And I say this because you are powerful in love, right? And your ability to really be like, hey, what do I need? What's going on for me? Right? Like that is incredible. And you get to see from that, like as you make requests, as you're with this person, who shows up to meet you reciprocally, right? Who's like, yeah, I want to give to you as much as you want to give to me. And this is really fabulous to be able to tune into, right? And I obviously don't know enough history to speak to this, and it's a longer conversation, but yeah,
like, do you
there's
husband to have a friend, a girlfriend?
this is what I think. When you trust yourself, right? When you trust yourself, and then you start to tune into what is and isn't reciprocal, and you're able to communicate that, it's important to pay attention to what you get back. My partner has really good girlfriends, and I trust him, right? So I think a lot of this is right, it depends on your history and your wounds and how you respond to them, and how you trust yourself, right? Because often, and I say this with a lot of love and compassion too, but I think this is real. Oftentimes when we struggle with trusting ourselves in relationships, sometimes we feel less trust with a partner. And it really, thank you for coming on, Naomi. It was beautiful to have you. Yeah, feel free if anybody, I know we're past the hour, so if this is fun for you to stay on, feel free. But pop up if you need to. But yeah, Amber, I think there is so much possibility there. I really want you to hear that. And some of it is really feeling like super anchored in in what your standard is, right? And what your quality standard is, right? And this person may or may not have been able to meet that, right? I don't know if we have enough information, but it sounds like you were saying there may have been some fishy things there. So who knows? This person just might have needed to go. But also, right, there's so much that can shift in dynamics when you feel anchored, when you deeply trust yourself, and when you're able to love a little bit more, like leaned back and seeing who really shows up for you, and then being willing to lean in and play with showing up in those relationships that are really showing up for you. Because the last piece I want to say is, there are good men.
But where you find them?
In a lot of places, and this I think is a continued conversation. I'm going to pause soon, but there are good men, and the good men that aren't showing up great, in my experience, are very trainable. But they're not trainable in the way that we sometimes think they are, which is by telling them what to do. They're actually trainable, like when we behave in a way where we invite them into their leadership. And so it's really powerful as a woman to know how to lovingly invite your man to be in a leadership role, right? To be the masculine in your relationship and to show up for you. And I just want you to hear that there are amazing men, and some of the men that are amazing but aren't the best in relationships, you have a lot of power to guide them in how they can show up more powerfully for you. Does this resonate at all?
Yeah, no,
I know this
true,
is a longer
it's
topic,
true.
but does this resonate at all and give you?
No, it's true, but I had a group of girls and they're like, all the men want to be dating online. And so I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many ways, right? And what can be tricky sometimes is when we hear other friends' experiences, other family experiences, we can wonder if that's just all there is. But this really, truly, this is one of the reasons I love mentorships and groups, like conversations like this that are out of our norm, is that because there's so many possibilities, right? Like my man, he came up to me at a coffee shop and just said, "I'd love to take you out sometime." And that was
Wow.
8 years ago, but not that long ago. And so I'm sharing this because there are men that are willing to go up to a woman that they're interested in because there's something about her. And there's so many ways that love can show up for you. And so much of it is just learning to kind of prep yourself to invite it in when it shows up.
Wow, that's a blessing. I wish somebody was approached me that way.
Yeah. Well, if we're new to each other, and if you are feeling a call, we can have a deeper conversation. Like,
All right.
use that link to set it up. Like, there's so much is possible. And so even if you just leave with a percentage more of believing that more is possible, I'm so happy. But really,
So forward to it. It's
yeah.
just been. Mm-hmm.
No, thank you for coming on, Amber. I know this love is a vulnerable topic, and we've all had hard moments and moments where we really have wondered if there's really more possibilities. So I'm thanking you for sharing and sending you so much love. Beautiful. Sarah, thank
Thanks.
you for being here. Yeah, so much is
All
possible.
right.
Amber. Um,
Thanks.
Beautiful. And I think, Gabrielle, did you have any question or comment, something you'd like to share before we close?
I would just like to say this one thing, share this one thing, and maybe this is an offering for you too, Amber. I, for a long time, believed that there were no good men in the world. And because I had dated several and had trouble with a lot of them. And the most recent big one was the father of my son, and that involved a lot of betrayal, just so much betrayal. And then somebody said to me, the best thing you could do right now is date yourself for at least a year. And I did. And what that meant is I learned to do what Jacqueline's actually recommending, like notice what feels good. Notice how we can move more into our own power, right? Like our own, like, I get to decide how I want to spend this evening. I get to do, because it's just me. And then once knowing ourselves so well, and the way you've put it so beautifully, Jacqueline, is anchoring into our own juiciness, anchoring into our own sense of who we are, puts us on a very different vibrational level in the world, right? So the quality of your friendships and the quality of the people that are attracted to you are going to be much better, much higher. And that's what happened for me. Like, it took me many years. I dated myself for a very long time, like 15 years, and by choice. I was also raising a son. I didn't want to complicate things. It was complicated enough. So anyway, and then this beautiful man asked me out, and I knew him, but I hadn't dated him before. And we've been together for 4.5 years. And we always,
Wow.
like, we pretend to make a list of all the reasons we're going to break up because there are no big reasons to break up. So we keep a list of tiny reasons to break up. It's just like a way to be fun and joking. And we can have real conversations. I was not able to have these kinds of conversations before. And I think what you're talking about, Jacqueline, and how you're setting up people that you're working with is like learning to tune into these universal wounds and how to heal them, how to do the antidote and how to find that. Like that's really valuable. And I don't find a lot of people in the world that are teaching that. So I am very excited to hear what you have to say about that. And Amber, maybe you would too. And
I
so that,
do.
yeah, there are good men in the world, and
Yeah.
we level ourselves so that we can have them come to us.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Gabrielle. Yeah, I think I mentioned this, but the thing that as you're saying that is just like such the truth that happens there that's so powerful is, yeah, when you love yourself, trust yourself, are super anchored in that, what happens is that your love with other people truly gets to be like an open-hearted, fun invitation.
Mhm.
That is the most joyful, rewarding space to love from, when it's simply invitations. Right?
Absolutely.
You don't need anybody to do anything for you to be okay. Like that is crazy empowering to love in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, and it really is possible. I mean, well, more stories for more days, but yeah, we've all had like a really deep love story with lots of ups and downs. But it's so powerful to go on that journey of loving yourself and knowing how deeply loved you are, so much that when you love other people and they respond to you, it's as an invitation.
Mm.
Wow.
Could you talk just a moment about what your relationship call is about?
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, really, it is like we talked today about some of these general topics, right? We kind of highlighted some tools that have really supported me. But one of the things that we get to talk about on that conversation is actually like how this really becomes real for you, right? And like, what are some of you shared a little bit, Amber, for example, some of the stuff that's your actual real life challenges, but we actually get to talk about, okay, what are the challenges and what is that vision that you have for love? Like, what is that love that the ultimate, right? The good man who shows up and, is loyal and is supportive and has that really joyful connection. So we get to work more on what that vision is and then start to actually create a plan. And one, giving you ideas of what that plan could look like if you just start to play with it for yourself, but what it also can look like if you're like, I don't want to do this alone anymore. Like, I really want support with this. So we can talk about a plan from both of those angles.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah.
All right.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. You guys went a little bit over with me. Say that again, Amber.
I said, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great, I was undecided whether to do so this course, but I'm glad I did so.
Yeah. I'm so glad you were here too. Thank you for being here. And I'll just share this as we close the recording and then we'll wrap up, but I am going to make the recording available so you can re-listen. I'm going to make the recording available, I believe, until Friday. So you can re-listen.
Where is is there a place that we have to go to?
For what?
For the video, for the recording?
Oh, I'm going to, Amber, where did you?
The first time. I don't, this is something I was, I was falling. I was like, somebody had told me to go to this, and that's when I started browsing. So I don't know much.
Did you, so Amber, if you want, just for a moment, pop your email address into the chat and I'll make sure there's a couple places people can sign up from. If you put your email in, and actually I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Put it in the chat, but that's until I know how to go and browse around. But I can put it in the chat. How is it that I can put it in the chat, but I don't, because I don't know where is it that you go